After his discussion with Mr. Grego, Mr. Tunde goes ahead to start collecting data with the software suggested. However, he realizes that he must take into account the energy demand of the customers living in the area. He then asks Mr. Grego, who shows him the steps and processes needed to collect accurate data for a customer's energy demand. Welcome to Basic Load Assessments for Solar Projects.
Good day all. I'm leadership storage in the Vehicle Academy. We will be discussing a topic, basic load assessment for solar projects. Next slide. Our presentation outline will cover the following: introduction to energy load assessment, electrical load consumption and electric metrics, the load types, load analysis profile and profile. We'll go ahead and have a case study of a load assessment and profile for our health facility. We'll also discuss demand input using DC energy software, and finally, load optimization in brief. The introduction to energy load assessment is one of the fundamentals of energy management. It involves listing of electrical consuming equipment in the facility. This is usually filled into a table showing power ratings and the load from starting from the wattage to the hours of use, taking cognizance of all the electrical devices in the facility along with their estimated hours that it will operate on a daily basis. There are two types of load assessments that will be carried out. One, these are load assessments that are done during design stages, when a designer needs to determine the size of the conductor and rating of an electrical equipment for a new installation. The other load assessment types, which are usually carried out, are on existing facility that is already equipped with an electrical infrastructure, but it requires an assessment to carry out an improvement work on that existing facility. These are the two basic load assessments that we have. So either the designer is looking at load assessment from the design stage, or after the facility is already available and you're trying to work on improvement. Next slide, we're going to be talking about electrical load consumption and energy metrics. These are three different things entirely. When we talk about electrical load, we are talking about the appliances that we use. They are appliances that need energy to work. They are appliances that we require either for lighting, for photocopying, television, for cooling, and what have you. These are loads that are measured in watts, and their units are usually in power. That's the rate of energy that they use. Now, in order for us to come to carry out an energy analysis, we need to understand the equipment load. What is the wattage of this equipment? This will help us in correctly sizing the facility energy management system as a whole. So, we need load information for all the equipment that we use in the whole facility. We need to gather them together. We need to write all their wattages. We need to write all the hours in which each of these appliances will work. Mostly, these wattage units or values are usually gotten at the back of these appliances, written on the nameplate. As we can see from the picture, the figure attached. As we can see, we can look over this. If we look over this nameplate, you see 130 watt as 240 volt. It means, and then with the time we are seeing there, it means it's an AC equipment, and that uses 130 watts. So, if we were to carry out our energy analysis, we will have to go one after the other on these equipment to see what their wattages are. In a situation where the nameplates are not visible or they are not attached, the equipment should have something like the voltage, the current in amps, which then the designer will, in this case, the designer will have to use the formula of calculating power, which is voltage times current, and the unit of power is in wattage. That is if the nameplate tag is not available. Now let's go to the consumption. The consumption has to do with wattage hour, not only the wattage that the appliances will use, but also at what hour will the equipment or appliances work. By the time we try to multiply the wattage, the power, by the time we'll have a unit of energy, which is going to be measured in watt hour. That is the consumption. So in other words, the consumption is determined by multiplying each load by the number of hours it operates. This same information used to create the load, that's the same information that is being used to create load profile, which we are going to discuss later on. So now we have a table, a power usage by an average Nigerian household, which is sourced from the course handbook on energy management. In this table, appliances have been listed, their capacity in terms of the wattage have been listed, then a typical operating time of use per day was also listed, and then it ended with an energy consumption per month. That means, for example, if we were to take the first one, which is incandescent bulb, we multiply the 50 by 6 hours, which gives us 300 watt hour. But let's have something in our mind that this energy consumption is in month rating. So that means whatever we are getting from this place, which is 300 watt hour, must be multiplied by 30 days of a month, which brings it to 9,000 watt hour. And if we are to put the unit in a kilowatt hour unit, the 9,000 becomes 9 kilowatts. So that means in this particular month, this incandescent bulb will be using 9 kilowatt hour throughout if it were to work 6 hours in a day for this particular month. Same applies to the water heater, micro oven, laptops, ceiling fan, and other appliances that were listed. This is a typical consumption rate table. Next slide. This consumption that we are talking about is usually correlated to energy cost. That's if we are to take Nigeria for example, we know our energy bill is being charged in naira per kilowatt hour. So if you know what a particular appliance is is going to consume, the particular energy an appliance is going to consume in a month, let me say 10 kilowatt hour. Let's say the TV you are using is going to consume 10 kilowatt hour in a month. And then the AEDC or the disco for that particular region is charging for every 1 kilowatt 200 naira. That means we will be multiplying the 200 naira multiplied by the 10 kilowatt hour to get the total amount of money that we are going to be paying for consumption of that particular appliance. Next, we are going to be talking about energy metrics, that's index. We can say the energy index is the measure of energy intensity that facilitates tracking and comparison. Although we don't need much of this in our energy load analysis or profiling, however, for those who are interested in exploring energy efficiency in building, this is very, very important and key there. You may explore this further when you are dealing with energy, benchmarking energy use in a building, regardless of the size. So next, let's talk about the load analysis and profile. The load assessment analysis information along with the runtime, just as we have said initially, is usually used to generate an energy breakdown. As with the peak day breakdown, the goal here is to match the total energy need for a particular period to the sum of the loads calculated for the same period. Then a load profile can be investigated. We can investigate the load profile from the load analysis. Once we have the load analysis of a particular facility, and then from there we draw out the load profile using whatever software is available. We can easily get our load profile, which will tell us a lot about how the energy used or how it will be consumed. So, load profile should always include consideration for energy need for every 24 hours. This is aggregated by different load use priority. That is, whether the load we are talking about is going to be critical load or the non-critical ones. And then, again, the peak load. We need to know what our peak loads are during the design. Next slide. This is just a typical sample of a load inventory calculation, where entries like the quantity, the unit load, the total kilowatt, hours in period, kilowatt period, on peak were discussed. You have the description by the right side, the unit and the description. For those who want to explore further can take their time to really go through it and see what each of them mean and what are their description and units attached to them. Now, let's take our case study, an energy needs and load profile of an isolated center test facility for COVID-19. Here we'll be assuming the system that will arise from this load assessment procedure will be a 100-bed facility that will work for 8 hours per day operating time for the laboratory. If the number of the tests per day are to increase, then the operating hours for this equipment will also have to increase, while the number of the equipment per lab will remain the same. So our intent here is to do a load profile analysis, load analysis and profile that will end up giving a designer the clue on the capacity of solar energy system that needs to be designed. So this particular case study is assuming that the load is going to be constant for every day of the year. Though you and I know that it is not possible for loads to be constant. Some days you may use more energy than the other. But let's take this as an hypothetical example, and then the peak power requirement will be taken assuming that all equipment and appliances are being used simultaneously. After that, after doing the calculation, will come about 6.3 kilowatts power, and the mean daily energy requirement falls to 57.8 kilowatt hour per day. This is a typical example of a load analysis. Call it type 2 load analysis. Sorry, we have the type 1 load analysis before the type 2. So let's start with the type 1. Type 1. By looking at this table, we will be able to differentiate the mode of filling in the equipment, appliances, the numbers, the units, power consumption, and other information that were needed. Here, the time will be divided into 3. The time hour, the daily time hour, which is spread between 7 to 5. The evening time hour spread within 6 to 11:59. And the night time hour, which is spread within 12 to 6:59 the following morning. So this typical type 1 load analysis also went ahead to differentiate the load use priority, whether it's critical or non-critical. At the end, we have our daily watt-hour usage, the mean daily time power consumption of all this equipment as 32 hour watt-hour, while the evening usage falls to 17,196 watt-hour, and finally the night falls to 37,420 watt-hour. That is to tell us that more energy is being consumed or needed at night time than the evening and the daytime. At the end, we'll have the total energy watt hour of the day as 87,494 watt hour per day. This is type 1 of the load analysis. Type 2. What differentiates the type 2 is that the facility were divided into different sections, talking about the lighting and fan separate, following the same energy calculation, to dealing with the testing and laboratory equipment on a separate note, and finally other equipment on a separate note. At the end of the day, these type 1 and type 2 are equal in terms of energy use. So it's only the only difference is that one tells us more about the energy used during the night than the other. Again, the first one is dealing with energy use divided into day, evening, and night, while the type 2 is only dealing with day, dividing the energy use into day and night only. Next is an example of the energy profile from the table that has been gotten from the load analysis. So load profile, we get load profile from the load analysis that was done initially. And these load profiles were separated into different facility use. For example, this is a load profile for the laboratory equipment use only. This also is the next load profile for the 100-bed isolation center for lighting and fans only. And the last one is the load profile for other equipment. From the detailed energy analysis that we have presented, we have gone ahead to put each of these facilities into charts that could show us what energy use or equipment is being used at what time. As we can see light and fan. There's the day, what is being consumed during the day in kilowatt hour per day, and what is being consumed by the fan and lightning during the night. Next is the testing lab equipment, what is being consumed during the day and what is being consumed at night. And finally, other equipment, what is being consumed during the day and what is being consumed at night. The next is a pie chart of the related equipment analysis. Here we can see 61% of the energy used falls under the lighting and fan, while 30% is being used by the testing lab and equipment. Finally, 9% of the total energy used is being consumed by other equipment. The load analysis 3 is the type that is usually gotten from ODAC Energy Solution Platform. Although not every one of us will have worked with ODAC, but for those who use ODAC Energy Platform to do design for mini-grid systems, this is how ODAC typically calculates its energy load analysis. This is usually the outcome of how ODAC energy analysis is being shown. At the end, ODAC also have the capability of bringing out the load profile in terms of combining all the facility energy use as one. Unlike the ones we've shown initially, where each of this facility are broken down into separate pieces. In Odyssey, it combines everything together, and then we can see our peak load mark for this particular design, which was used. It means an average load of 146.46 kilowatt hour per day is required. Demand analysis and aggregation of load of all the load categories of the community. This particular load profile is our demand analysis and aggregation of load of all customers category of a given community in terms of residential, commercial, public, and productive users. On the final note, we are going to be talking about load optimization in just a brief. When we talk about load optimization, it means using provided power source in the most efficient way, whereby we use energy efficiency bulb instead of incandescent bulbs that waste energy. So, whatever equipment we will be dealing with, we need to make sure that they are equipment that load optimization have been considered from the onset. And load optimization can be achieved through the following: either reducing the electric power consumption by switching off redundant loads, or retrofitting high consumption loads with energy efficient ones. Also, timing the electric consumption to avoid peak load, which might overload the power system, or to switch loads to time when electric generation is high, during the day when installation level is high. So, when next we are putting load analysis into consideration, we should have at the back of our mind that load optimization is very, very important and key. Thank you for the opportunity to attend this training. We look forward to discussing more with you from Greco Academy. You can get across to us by browsing through our website at www.grecopower.com.ng or email us at info@grecopower.com. You may also call us through this telephone number 08090207682. Thank you for your time.